It's time to let the past be in the past, and the latest reporting on the New York Mets should get you buzzing. What's going on, Mets fans? Welcome back to another offseason edition of MetCast. As always, I am Rain. If you're enjoying this content, all I ask you to do is like and subscribe. Consider becoming a member. Check out the pinned comment to become a member to be guaranteed to get your comments and questions read live on air to us and our guests. And with that being said, unless you've been under a rock, we all know Brandon Nimmo has been traded to the Texas Rangers for Marcus Semien, sending Mets world into a complete tizzy. What will be the corresponding move? And we have a new report for you. Let's get into it.
It's important to take a look at this in both the near term and the long term. Right now, the proximate near term reaction is the Mets defense up the middle got a lot better because
a lot better. Gold Glove winner in 2025. There's no doubt about it. The leadership that he's going to bring, but the bat ain't the same.
Semien is a Gold Glove defender at second base.
Now, one thing I can't stand, I saw Fox News put this out. Now you have this from Morosi. It's not Morosi's fault, but why put out a potential New York Mets lineup? Ronnie Mauricio as the DH. Odds are he's going to start the year down in AAA. You're looking at this lineup. Obviously, Jeff McNeil is probably on his way out. They have him starting in left field. Look at that 6, 7, 8, 9. Might be the worst in all Major League Baseball. That's why the Mets still have a ton to do. They have Mark Vientos at first base. So I hate when these networks put these potential lineups out there. But another thing it does highlight is all the holes in the Mets lineup that David Stearns still has a ton of work to do.
When you consider what this lineup looks like, Lauren, you say it's different and yet incomplete.
Absolutely.
There is no Pete Alonso here. And you know who else could be an impact here is Cody Bellinger. And
absolutely. And that's something that we need to address. Earlier on in the offseason, the Mets touched base with Cody Bellinger, and a lot of people were saying, oh, it's just them kind of feeling out the market. No, I think they were anticipating a Brandon Nimmo move. Let's be honest. Clearly, it was in the works for a couple of weeks. We covered this earlier, so if you want to check that out, I will link that video to David Stearns at the end of this video, talking about how this started in the GM meeting. So clearly, the Mets were trying to move off Nimmo, open that left field spot for a purpose. And Morosi's going to talk about where he could see Bellinger fitting in, and then I'll give you a rebuke to what he says.
Harold talked about this in the A block. I think Bellinger is an even better fit for the Mets now than he would have been last week.
Very interesting that he says that. He's a better fit now for the Mets than he was last week, and dare I say, better fit for the New York Mets than the New York Yankees.
Honestly, there could have been an impact for Cody Bellinger even before this trade happened, but now there's really a fit there for Cody Bellinger. And here's part of the other conversation, Lauren, is how, of course, Bellinger could impact this Mets lineup and what it also means for Pete Alonso. And Harold did a great job of pointing out Bellinger, Alonso, both Boris clients. Here is one other thing to think about. The Mets have a young outfielder by the name of Carson Bench. And the belief is that Bench could be ready at some point in time in the 2026 season. But if they sign Bellinger, then there's actually a bit of a two-track process. Maybe Bellinger starts the year in center field, and then they would have Vientos play first base. They could.
Interesting what he says there, though. They gotta have Bellinger start the year in center field and potentially move to first base, but they don't address left field. I think even if the Mets did acquire Bellinger, they still could potentially go out and get a Tatis, a Tucker, or Steven Kwan, who I'm not the biggest fan of. I know a lot of Mets fans are, but I still think even adding a Bellinger would mean the Mets are still not done, because you're pretty much just swapping out Alonso for Bellinger's money. And if you're planning on having Carson Bench in center field, making next to nothing, Tyrone Taylor is backup, making next to nothing, still allows you to upgrade in left field.
Still have Beatty, of course, somewhere in the conversation. But then as soon as Benj is ready,
Beatty's going to be the starting everyday third base. I think he earned that in the second half of the season. His defense was pretty damn good playing second and third and will only get better, I believe, at third base, giving the Mets actually a very solid infield defense-wise, especially if Bellinger's at first base, considering he'd be a drastic upgrade, at least defensively, over Pete Alonso.
Bellinger becomes more of your everyday, consistent first baseman, perhaps lessening the need for a Pete Alonso in your lineup. Although I think the guys talked about this too. You still wonder who is going to protect.
That's where I get to. I think adding Bellinger, you're still in the market for Pete. One shouldn't affect the other because Bellinger could play left, he could play center. Pete could still play first, Pete could DH half the time. And then look at that lineup. Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Bellinger, finally giving Pete Alonso the protection that he hasn't had in years.
Juan Soto, and of course the impact there. So a lot of moving parts. I do believe, Lauren, the chances of a trade among their infielders has increased. And it's
Jet Williams, Jeff McNeil, Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, all could be moved. I think Beatty a little less than others because he's got more value, but there's some type of move coming. It's just going to happen. Whether or not the Mets go out and get a big left fielder and then try to upgrade via center field via trade, or if they're willing to keep Carson Bench, upgrading the backup utility position. There were rumors out there, reports that the Mets were very interested in Brandon Donovan from the St. Louis Cardinals, a career around 290 guy, high on base guy, not a ton of power, but gets on base, could steal a little, could play left, short, second, center, could play a little bit all over the place. A younger Jeff McNeil, but a guy who hits more consistently than Jeff McNeil, as we've seen Jeff McNeil go from batting title to a 240 hitter like that.
Not just limited to Beatty. It's not just limited to anyone else. There could be a Ronnie Mauricio, could be Luis Angel Acuna. There are, I believe,
add Acuna and Mauricio to that trade list, by the way.
A number of potential trades the Mets are working through right now, whether or not they bring in Cody Bellinger from across town.
Okay.
And now we're starting to hear that talk. Cody Bellinger, but imagine how our fellow Yankee fans would feel if we steal another one of their better players. But listen, the versatility's there. I've said it before. His offense, the ups and downs are concerning to me. 700, 800, 700, 800 as of last year. But the defensive versatility, defensive run saved, adding a Bellinger and a Simeon, both guys who could win a Gold Glove at multiple positions, would drastically upgrade this defense. And I still say this. If Bellinger is signed, I still think there's a chance Pete Alonso returns. You could stick Bellinger in left if Cody, or dare I say, if Soto's willing to move to left, I can see Bellinger going to right. The guy's got a cannon for an arm, could be a Gold Glover anywhere. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Your prioritization, Bellinger, Pete, and don't forget, we still got to add arms, but make sure your notifications are turned on, like and subscribe to never miss any of the latest New York Mets news. As always, God bless. Let's go Mets.